Welcome to On Your Own Terms. I'm Patty Talbot. This is the place where we learn together what it takes to change the world on our own terms and in our own special ways. Today, I'm going to introduce you to changemaker Susan O'Connor. I met Susan when I was in the UK for some training with a wonderful organization called One of Many Women. One of Many is another organization like Win Win Women that has been deliberately created to make a community of supportive women helping one another be their very best so they can indeed have the skills, the wherewithal, and overcome any overwhelm that may be holding them back from changing the world on their own terms. Susan O'Connor comes to us from the space of information technology. Her story of her struggles as a woman in that work environment has driven her to make some important changes, not only for herself, but for other women by her side and coming along behind her in this traditionally male dominated field. So listen now to Susan Homegrown Solutions for this patchwork world, and I'll see you on the other side. This is Susan O'Connor.
The iteration of who I am now actually started with my very first job in IT. I was in my early 20s. I'd finished doing a master's in economic development, and there was a recession going on, and it was quite difficult to get a job. But I eventually found a proper job, which is what we call in the UK is when you come out of university and you get a job that's not kind of in a bar or something like that. I got this job and I was really excited. And I can remember it was actually quite local to me. So it was in Leicester and it was with a car rental organisation. Now it was as a trainee developer. So it was going to learn how to code. And this was back in the early 90s. So that was really something unusual. And I can remember I walked into the office to be introduced to my team. And Leicester City is right in the middle of the UK. And we have a prison right in the middle of the UK. It actually looks like a castle, which is really bizarre. So I could see the castle as I'm walking down the corridor, really excited to meet my team. It was a team of just men, and the team leader stood up and came to greet me. And I was like, this is going to be great. He's going to tell me how wonderful this all is and how excited they all are. And instead, he actually said something completely different to me. He said to me, you can ask a question the first time and I'll give you an answer. If you ask me a question the second time, I'll give you an answer, but I won't be very nice to you. If you ask me the question a third time, he said, you'd be a complete bastard to me. And this is my very first job in IT. And you can imagine how that felt. I was just shaken. I couldn't believe that somebody would actually say that to me. I then spent the next 18 months pretty much terrified, not knowing what I was doing, really struggling to learn anything because I was scared of actually asking any questions. And at that point, it made me decide that I will never, ever lead or behave in that way to anybody else throughout my whole career. If somebody needs help, they will get help because you do not grow an expert in the industry by behaving like that. And that became the story of my career, which then spanned 30 years of being a developer, a test manager, a project and program manager, and eventually an operations director for the UK and I. In October, I took redundancy from that operations director role, which I absolutely loved because there was something more for me to do. Because as I had grown and as I had evolved in my own career, women became my passion in the sense that IT is not diverse at all. There's hardly any women in there. And even though I have been there for 30 years and I've seen a few more women, I don't believe it is any better now than it was when I first joined. And it's really hard for women to progress in that industry. As an operations director, on top of my everyday job, I trained as a coach with one of many, and I started to bring that coaching philosophy into my day job, coaching women within the organization, setting up networks for women. And I realized when I got this opportunity to take redundancy that this was going to be the next step of my evolution. This was going to be my story for now. There's lots of issues in the IT industry, but the ones that I focus mostly on is around women in the 40s and 50s. They're generally going through quite a lot of turmoil, maybe going through the menopause. Some have young children or aging parents. They're working their socks off because they're still ambitious and they really want to progress in their careers, but they feel like their jobs are stuck. They're stuck. They're not going anywhere. They're on this kind of wheel constantly of trying to be perfect in every aspect of their lives, doing as much as they possibly can for everybody else, but actually it's not working. Some of them are having breakdowns. Some of them are checking out and just leaving the industry. And some are just like, I've got to work harder. I've got to work harder. But actually, they don't get to the next level because it just doesn't work. And this is where I have created my company called Shift Left. And if you are in the IT industry, you'll understand what that means. But for those of you who are not, Shift Left refers to the concept of having a plan. Now, in IT, we love our plans. And essentially, by shifting left, you are changing something to actually bring that plan in sooner. So for me, it's about women shifting left their career. So they're bringing all those changes now. They can bring their career further forward and get to where they want to be. But also for organisations, by changing the way in which they support and help women to progress. That increasing diversity and inclusion will reap them so many benefits. I have said for many years that you cannot develop a product solely by white middle-aged men that is used never by a middle-aged man. And it's really important that we have that diversity so those products are actually relating to the people who are going to use it. So for me, empowering women to take control of themselves, to actually not burn out, to actually bring their authentic voices back into the office, to actually have the confidence and the courage to be their authentic selves and bring that with power means that not only is that organization getting all that talent, that wonderful, amazing talent, but they're bringing in a culture change, which will improve the environment for all the men and anyone else in that organization, which will then reap the organizational rewards in terms of profits. So it's quite a holistic view. It's quite a big problem to be solving. And what I do is currently, because the business is quite new, so I'm coaching women one-to-one. I'm doing small group programs to help women just to get that balance. 4-week program where they can just focus on things to get some balance and what's important to them becomes their focus. And then they can make their decisions and their boundaries. And then we can take them further and they can take their careers further. Women in the industry quite often feel like they are not seen or heard or respected or recognized. And the sorts of things that they experience, lots and lots of microaggressions. But one of the things in many male-dominated industries is that you can be in a meeting and people talk over you and they dismiss what you say, or you will say something and then it gets dismissed, but then another bloke will say exactly the same things and everybody goes, that's a great idea. That is real stuff. And a real story from my own experience is that even as an operations director, those microaggressions were constant. I had one colleague ring me up afterwards to give me some feedback to tell me that they don't like hearing my voice on senior management meetings and that everybody rolls their eyes when I speak. Initially, I was quite taken aback. Fortunately, I was not on video because I'll tell you all here, I started to cry because it really hurt, really upset me. But because of the training and the coaching that I have done for myself and that I share with others, I managed to take a breath and think. And it just dawned on me. He didn't like hearing my voice because he's not used to hearing a woman's voice in a technical role making the decisions. And because of that, it was alien to him. The sorts of voices he hears with that level of authority are usually his wife telling him to do something or his mother telling him to do something. And he didn't like it when there was a woman making those decisions on a call. I was the only woman on that call, and it was my responsibility to make those decisions. And that's the part of bringing that authentic self. You're going to have those microaggressions or macroaggressions, but it's being able to hold that and come back as yourself. Not bullshit, nasty. It's about coming back with elegance almost to challenge that belief and to give this chap his due, although I'm sure he didn't really believe it at the time, but he took that challenge and it made him think. And that's what I would like to happen, is that we have that voice and we can have that challenge and we can make those men who are doing those microaggressions to think about what it is that they're saying. They may go away and just discard it, but at least we will feel comfortable in ourselves that we've actually challenged it and not continue to have that conversation in our heads for hours afterwards. There are lots of men out there who struggle with that, what is becoming quite a toxic environment, and they don't want to work in it as well. And by helping women to be the change makers that they really are, they're not just changing the environment for themselves, but they're changing it for everyone, and then everyone will flourish. Everyone probably realizes that diversity is one of my pet things. And again, I think it's something that has grown more and more as I've got older, it's grown more and more important. I think initially I showed up just like all the men, tried to work really hard, tried to keep up with them, tried to fit in, and it not working, and literally started to learn that actually I would be better off being me because the way I lead is really effective in what I do. But the importance is it's that diversity of it because the way I lead really is impactful for me. The way a man leads, as long as he's not toxic and bullying and being really aggressive, can be aligned and can be as successful. There's not one way of doing everything. The beauty of diversity is that by bringing those in together, you get a much richer experience. And within IT, as I mentioned before, it's so much more important. We cannot be developing, we cannot be providing services to everybody out in the real world if only one sector of the world is actually creating them. In IT, every single line of code, every element that's designed, every piece of item on a web page has to come out of somebody's imagination. It's one of the most creative industries that you'll ever come across. And yet nobody thinks of it as being creative. And without that diversity of experience and thought and idea, everything's going to look the same. And it's not going to meet the needs of a wide range of people. So for me, just like with the UN at the moment, UN Women, if you can get IT to be more diverse, the impact is massive, the whole world. And to get more women into that environment, get more Black people into that environment, get more brown people into that environment. Everybody has got a different experience. And it's really, really important in order for that output to be perfect and to really meet the needs. historically been where the first involved with IT. It was only once men started to get a bit curious and see what they were doing that actually it flipped. And I still cannot get my head round as to why that flipped. So it was only women that was doing all the punch cards back in 70s and 80s. It's not that long ago. And yeah, and then all of a sudden it became only a domain for men. I want it to really start flipping back so it's equal, not one or the other. My dream is that IT tech industries will reach that pure diversity of thought. And with that, the culture would be such a positive culture that it'd be a great place to work, that people were cared for and respected, and everybody had a voice. And although it's a big dream, I do believe it's achievable because I see it happening in pockets, and it may only be in pockets in certain departments within a company, but it is achievable. And when it happens, that synergy and for people to be able to go to work and actually love their work, but also for that separation that they know that they can have that balance. Whereas in a lot of the tech industries now, people have to work ridiculous hours, absolutely ridiculous hours. And we've all seen the stories with Meta and people sleeping on the floor and working all night. Unfortunately, that happens. I have spent many a night on a call when things have gone wrong. The UN stated this year that they believe it'll take 300 years for us to get to equity within the tech industry, which is a long time. We've gone backwards during the pandemic. And interestingly enough, I was talking to somebody last week and she was suggesting that those of us who are campaigning for these changes and trying to support the women and diversity, because it's not just women, it's obviously all of it. I focus mainly on women, is that we're almost like the suffragettes of the 21st century, fighting all this negativity that has been created over the past 30, 40 years. Because the IT industry is quite a new industry. For me, with my organisation, my plan is just one step of actually reaching out to companies, reaching out to women, bringing them along the journey of being coached and mentored from someone who's actually walked that path to help them then build up that network amongst themselves, whether it's outside of an organisation or within an organisation, to then become that network. Because women together, collaborating and supporting each other is the power. One woman on her own can do an awful lot, and it benefits her and her life to be coached. But if she's working with women who have also been coached and have also gone through that process of having a similar sorts of language and they're there to support each other, the impact on that organisation is much wider than just one or two people. And that's the process that I want to see, is to get out there, to get people into organisations, to actually coach and mentor women at an earlier stage in their career, middle management, not the exec. There's enough people coaching the exec. Middle management, coach them, help them to feed out and show a different way of actually leading by example, having the role models, bringing the other people up, so that eventually as those leaders step up into the next levels, you've made that change and it's a much more robust change. I feel that the change at the top is needed, but it can get lost because actually diversity of thought and inclusion happens at a much lower level in every organisation. So what I've seen from my own experience and from experience of others that I've talked to as I've gone on this journey is that you can do great stuff at the top and the exec, but actually what really makes the difference is whether the people below that are living it and walking that same path. And that's where it's not necessarily happening. And that's where women get disengaged, don't succeed, and they start to leave. And sadly, they actually leave the industry. They don't necessarily always leave for another company. I have seen in action how building a women's network within an organization with coaches, guiding them and bringing information in and helping them through the situations that they experience has had a massive impact, and it's very quick. That's one of the beautiful things about women, is that when they get into a group where the trust starts to build, it's really powerful, and they can come with whatever they need to come with. And let's be honest, for women, their lives aren't just necessarily work. It's how do you balance work when your child is sick or you've got an aging parent, and you just need to find out how, if anybody else can help them navigate that conversation with a manager to say that they need to have some time off. It's those sorts of things, rather than just going, oh no, I've got to try and balance absolutely everything, because you'll never balance everything. I I would love people to connect to me. You can sign up to my weekly newsletters and find out any offers or things are going. I do one-to-one coaching. I do small group coaching. If you're interested or you just want to talk to me, do connect. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. It is linkedin.com/IN/Susan hyphen Shift Left Limited. That's Shift Left Ltd.
Thank you, Susan. I know that everyone who's been privileged to hear your message today can see the possibilities, whether they work in the IT world or outside of it, in another place where men and the male paradigm has been the traditional driving force. When we bring women to the table and create a hospitable environment for them, it actually becomes more hospitable for everyone of every gender or however they identify. This old boys club way of operating, where we're, quote, uncomfortable with women at the table, it's time for us all to work together to break out of that. Susan has the skills, and she has a program to help IT environments become more hospitable for women, but also for women to have the tools that they need to be able to work successfully in those environments without burning out. I know you'll want to look her up at the places she suggested and see, as I have seen, how she exemplifies the 16 skills that all change makers have in common, including self-awareness and self-confidence, and a core set of values, and a sense of agency that she can indeed take action to make things better. Can you also see that in doing so and making the environment more inclusive, she's reducing inequities for women and girls, but also anyone who has faced inequities in the workplace. This helps to forward the goal of decent work and economic security for everyone. And it also raises the standards and the capacity of better industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Everything is better when people have the economic foundations they need to feel good about the work they're doing and the partnerships they're creating to solve the problems that we have, many of which are backed up these days by technological innovations. Susan's work is about women, but can you see how it has the potential to ripple out and make a difference and progress toward every one of those goals? Partnerships, equity, good jobs, safe environments for everyone. That's what it takes to change the world. Show up with your skills, bring them to bear on the goals and the issues that are important to all of us, and let the world see what you stand for. That's what it means to be a change maker. Next week, I'll feature another change-making woman who's changing the world on her own terms. And in the meantime, please stay grounded in your beingness. Let yourself be guided in your doing this. Be generous in your connectedness with others, and be inspired in what you reflect on internally and what you reflect out into the world, so you can consciously change the world on your own terms. I'm Patty Talbot. I'm always learning, and I know you are too.